Welcome to A Dose of Inspiration for the Solo Traveller. Today's expert interview is with Jessica Schmit, who runs the blog Watchful Wanderer. Jessica is originally from Canada and has lived in Vietnam for the last 4 years, and she's going to give us an insight into Vietnam. Hi Jessica, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. I was really keen to speak to you about your experiences in Vietnam, especially living there as a solo female. But before we start and really go into the interview, can you just tell us a bit more about your background and how you ended up in Asia?
Sure. Yep. I was studying in Brussels, actually. I was doing my master's in international development. And right around the time that I finished, it was the same time as the economic recession. So there weren't many jobs. So I decided not to go back to Canada, and my thesis advisor actually suggested that I go and live in a developing country, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to teach English. So I got a teaching certificate, and the place that I was doing my teaching certificate, they used to work in Vietnam, and he hooked me up with his old school, and that's kind of how I ended up here.
Okay, and I know that you're really passionate about volunteerism and development work as well, aren't you? And about showing people the right way to volunteer. Is there a lot of are there a lot of volunteering opportunities in Vietnam?
Yeah, there are definitely. Vietnam is kind of on the cusp of a big change. It's grown a lot in the last 4 years that I've been here, but there's still a lot of international NGOs that work here, and there's a lot of small local organizations as well.
Okay, what are you working at the moment? Because you're working in development at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I have various different things that I work on, various projects. I work with an organization called LIN, which is the LIN Center for Community Development here in Ho Chi Minh City, and they basically facilitate finding skilled volunteers and matching skilled volunteers with small organizations that need them, as well as helping the organizations to find and match them with donors.
Oh, okay, interesting. So, from your experience, 4 years is a long time to live in a country. You've got so much experience in Vietnam. Would you recommend Vietnam as a place for people to go and volunteer, especially because you said it's just on the cusp of kind of changing?
Yeah, if you have time to commit, I would definitely recommend it as a place to come and spend some time and volunteer. There's not really many opportunities in terms of like short-term volunteering, but
Okay.
if you have the time, it's definitely a great place to be for
So
that.
it's for what, 3 months onwards or a
Yeah,
month?
I'd say a minimum of 3 months.
Okay, and what types of volunteering opportunities are there? Is it working with children or?
There are some opportunities working with children, but I would say mostly it would be capacity building for the NGOs themselves. Been a change recently that they're trying to empower the local staff in order to, because traditionally it's always been foreigners who run the top positions. They're the directors and the managers, and they're trying to move towards having Vietnamese people in those positions.
Okay.
But of course, they need to be trained in order to take over those positions. So it's a lot of teaching how to fundraise, event management, volunteer management. If you have any sort of web design skills or any vocational training skills, teaching vocational training is very popular here.
Okay, lots of different opportunities, but obviously it's for people who are serious about volunteering to commit to 3 months at least. So how is your experience as a woman in Vietnam, and how are you perceived over there?
It's been interesting. So when I first moved here, I was a teacher, and teachers are very highly respected in Vietnam. So there's that element of it, which is very nice. But also, as a Western woman, I don't look the same as Vietnamese women. They're a lot smaller than me. So there'd be times, I should preface this and say that it is not rude in their culture, but they would just be saying, "Oh, teacher, you look so fat." or
Yeah.
oh, teacher, just talking like that.
Just
Very
honest.
upfront and very. So that was interesting. It took a while to get used to when I
Yeah, I can
first moved
imagine.
here, but it's fine. I mean, I'm totally fine with it. I'm used to it now, but yeah, that took a while to get used to.
Okay, I know that I went to Vietnam in 2002 and I was a bit apprehensive about going to the country back then. I know that
Mhm.
most people probably do, or they go to Thailand and then Cambodia and then might not get as far as
Yeah,
Vietnam.
yeah.
So, what do you think the country has to offer people traveling alone?
Yeah, well, Vietnam has changed a lot since then, I would imagine, but
Okay.
it's definitely not as easy to travel in Vietnam as it is to travel in Thailand, for example.
Yeah.
Um, the infrastructure is just not there yet, and the resources are there's not as many resources. But I think that Vietnam is an extremely beautiful country, and there's a lot of places that are still very untouched. They just recently discovered a huge new cave in the north that no one had ever even seen before,
Wow.
2009. So yeah, so there's a lot of natural beauty here. It's the terrain is quite different. You can get a little bit of everything: mountains and trekking to the ocean, to caves, to the delta with the mangrove forests.
Yeah.
So you can get a little bit of everything, and the people are just so wonderful. They're so lovely.
And the
And the
food? Oh,
I love food.
and it's so fresh and good for you as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I know it takes quite a long time. Say if you go to Ho Chi Minh and then go up to Hanoi, and Hanoi's kind of you've got all the boat tours from Hanoi. So, how long realistically would you say that you'd need to see Vietnam?
I'd say 3 to 4 weeks if you were moving around quite a lot the whole time.
Okay, and what?
And now actually they have a cheap airline, so you can actually fly to a lot of places for under 15 or $20.
Wow,
Called Vietjet.
Vietjet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put a link to that underneath this. Because I know when I went, a lot of it was mini buses, and there was
Yeah.
the train as well. You can get overnight train journeys,
Yeah.
can't you?
Yeah, and you can still get the overnight train, and you can still get buses. The roads are not great, and there's a lot of honking. And often, if you don't necessarily care where you're going in Vietnam, then you can get for just as cheap as a bus ticket, a flight, and you don't have
Okay,
to spend the whole time on the bus.
that's great for people that have got shorter time, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So you just said about the cave that they've just discovered. Are there any other hidden gems that you would recommend for people to visit in Vietnam?
Okay, well, this is not really a hidden gem. I think it's quite well known, but it is my favorite place in Vietnam.
Okay.
Is Hoi An.
Yeah. Is that where you can get the suits made?
Yeah, yeah, but it's just an old French colonial town that's been sort of combined with the Vietnamese traditions as well, and it's a very interesting mix. And even though it is quite touristy, it somehow manages to still be really lovely as well. It's not over the top. And a lot of people sort of pass through Ho Chi Minh City, saying, there's not much to see or do here. But I really love Ho Chi Minh City, and I think that there's a lot of hidden gems in the city itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of history in the country as well, isn't there, with the Vietnam War, and you can go and visit the museum and see some amazing photography at that time
Yeah.
as well. I remember staying
There's
in.
actually been a growing art scene in Ho Chi Minh City as well. So there's a lot of local artists and local musicians that have been really changing the perception of Ho Chi Minh City as well.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's changed, but I know when I went, there was a lot of guest houses along the river, which are just so tranquil at night time. And they had a system whereby you didn't pay. It was like an honour system. So if you had your food or you got a beer, you actually wrote it down in a book, and then you paid when you checked out. Do they still have that?
Yeah.
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 Okay, that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Very trusting.
Yeah, very trusting. So Are there any places in Vietnam, or are there any experiences you've had that surprised you?
I mean, there's was certainly a big adjustment period to living in Asia, but I wouldn't say that anything was extremely surprising.
Okay. Did it exceed your expectations, or was it just different to what you expected?
Well, I didn't have too many expectations. I didn't know that much about Vietnam before coming here, so I'm not sure that it could have exceeded or not exceeded my expectations.
Okay.
But it took the first 6 months that I lived here. I really hated it. I
Yeah.
didn't like the. It's a big city, and there's a lot of traffic and a lot of noise and a lot
Mhm.
of pollution, and everything is just crazy. Moves very fast, and I'm from a small town in northern Canada, so it's quite different.
Completely
And even
different.
before that, I was living in Brussels, which is relatively small. It's a relatively small city. So it was that. I guess that was a pretty big adjustment, just getting used to living in a city with 19 million people. Um, but once you start to make friends and sort of get to know the city a little bit, I started driving. So I started driving a motorbike.
Oh
Um,
wow, that's
and that sort of
brave.
opened up the city for me, and I started to really enjoy it.
And how do you find it on a bike? Because I remember trying to cross the road and there was about five different lanes of traffic.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy, but for somehow the once you get used to the flow, it doesn't seem like it should work, but it does.
Okay. And I remember as well that you could hire motorbikes. So you could basically hire a motorbike with a driver for the day.
Yeah,
Back then it was about $6 a day, and then they take you from place to place and show you around. They still have that
yeah,
system. Yeah.
yeah. You can get a Zaom driver, and they just sort of take you around on their motorbike, and it's quite a good system actually, because they generally know a lot of this city. And always surprised in Ho Chi Minh City, at least, not necessarily in the rest of the country, but in Ho Chi Minh City, pretty much everyone speaks enough English that you can get by.
That's good. And how have you found the safety in Vietnam as a woman?
Um, in Vietnam in general, it's pretty good. Ho Chi Minh City has a reputation for petty crime, for pickpocketing and bag snatching. So guys will be on motorbikes and drive by and snatch bags off of girls. So what I always tell people when they first move here is just not carry a purse. Just put your money in your bra, or put your camera, your iPhone in your bra or something, or in your pockets, because they will, especially in the areas that a lot of the newcomers are going, like the backpacker area of the city. They will snatch it off of you, and it can often lead to some pretty bad accidents.
Okay, that's a good tip actually. So, what else would you say to somebody who's thinking about going to Vietnam for the first time and they might be a bit apprehensive about going?
I would say that the people are so friendly. So the tourism industry is pretty new here, so you can definitely run into your frustrations. But if you're just a little bit patient and you ask questions, and you show like your curiosity about their country, you're gonna make fast friends, and they're gonna be very helpful. Just last 2 weeks ago, I was in a new place that I'd never been before in Vietnam called Mai Cho. It's just outside of Hanoi, and it's in a valley surrounded by mountains, and it's just stunning. It's so beautiful. But I was trying to rent a motorbike, and the girl was like, "Oh no, we don't do that here. There's no motorbike rental service." And I said, "Are you sure? Like, there's no way that I could rent a motorbike. I know how to drive, and it's fine." And she was like, "Okay, actually, I'll call my brother. You can use his bike for the day." I
Wow,
was
and
like,
she didn't know you.
"Okay."
That's great. That's really friendly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. So, what would your perfect itinerary be in Vietnam?
I would fly into Ho Chi Minh City, and I think it's much cheaper to fly into Ho Chi Minh City than to Hanoi. It's a bigger city, bigger, more connections. But fly into Ho Chi Minh City, and then I would do Hoi An and Dalat in the south, and then go up north and from Hanoi do Halong Bay, because you just have to do Halong Bay, even though it is crazy and so busy. But then you also go to Ninh Binh, which is quite close to Halong Bay, and it's the similar limestone mountains, but it's inland, and so you're going through river waterways and paddling in boats, and it's just as beautiful as Halong Bay and a lot quieter. It's really nice. And you can do a day trip there from Hanoi.
Okay.
And then I would do Sapa as well.
Is that where the
Or
tribes
as an alternative
are?
to Sapa, because Sapa is quite busy, is Mai Chau that I was just telling you about.
And can you do like a tribe immersion in Mai Chau? Because I know you can in Sapa, can't you?
Yeah, you can do homestays and stay with the local family. They're actually really well known for their traditional weaving as well. And you can sit with them and watch them do it. It's incredible, the talent that goes into it and the time.
Fantastic. So that's a couple of good alternatives there to Halong Bay and to Sapa as well. The
Yeah.
touristy. Fantastic.
I mean, they're both really stunningly beautiful. There's a reason why so many people go there, but a lot of people go there.
Yeah, really well-known areas now.
Yeah.
So you wrote a really, really good piece for the Girl About the Globe website. Thank you for that. It was on how to be a socially responsible traveller in Vietnam. So can you just tell us a bit more about that? Because I know you're quite passionate about...
I think that it's a really important alternative to volunteering. You know, volunteering isn't always, the timing doesn't work out, or you can't find an organization that fits with your ideas or your skills. There's various reasons why maybe volunteering isn't the best option when you're in a country. And a great alternative to that is supporting social businesses. And there's been a huge growth in social businesses in Vietnam and Southeast Asia in general, actually. But in Vietnam, there's been quite a few, and they're either partnering with an NGO, and the profits are going back to that NGO, or they're training kids from disadvantaged backgrounds or people with disabilities, and they're training them so that they'll have marketable skills once they finish the training program.
Okay.
So they have everything from restaurants to cafes to shops and hotels.
So if anybody wants some more details on that, I'll put a link to the article that Jessica wrote for the site, because you've put that in so much detail, all the different places that you can visit with links to it. So thank you. So just going back to you for the moment, what are your plans? Can you see yourself staying in Vietnam for the near future?
I've been thinking recently that it might be time to move on.
Okay.
It's been 4 years, so I love it.
Time.
I really do love it. And, there's so many places to see in Southeast Asia as well. And Vietnam is a great jumping off point for a lot of those places. So I think maybe one more year, because there's still a few places that I really want to see before I leave. I really would love to go to Burma, and I would really love to go to the Philippines. So a couple more places, and then I think it might be time to move on.
And does AirAsia operate from Vietnam?
Yes, yeah.
Because they're a really cheap airline, aren't they, for hopping around Asia?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to add just as we wrap up the interview?
It was lovely to meet you.
Yeah, you too. So I'll put the link to everything we've discussed under the interview as well. And Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today, and I wish you every success with Watchful Wanderer in the future and your plans if you decide to leave Vietnam.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.